Well, there's an interesting situation going on in the government today in that the Democratic majority in Congress, both in the Senate and the House, really wants to find a way to end the war in Iraq, whereas President Bush and his administration want to commit more troops and continue the conflict. I think it's interesting because as the executive, Bush has the authority to commit as many troops as he wants, to send troops to Iraq, to control the military because the military um, they take their orders from the executive, and the Democratic houses of Congress, both in the House and Senate, are trying to find ways to curtail Bush's power and to end the conflict in Iraq. So the question is, how would they go about doing this? Because they cannot simply order the military to withdraw from Iraq. So, from what I've read, one of the proposed bills is, putting a limit on how much money can be spent, which in Iraq, which forces Bush to set a timetable or to withdraw the troops at a certain point, and then another bill. Actually, they were trying to pass, I think, some bill which had some rhetoric requiring a certain amount of troops to return to the U.S. by a certain date, which would, in effect, set a timetable and develop somewhat of an exit strategy. This to me is very interesting because it talks about process in government. If you have an executive for one party who wishes to wage war and Congress is controlled by the other party who does not want to wage war, how is this resolved? Obviously, Congress controls spending, they can set the budget, but the executive has the power to actually order the military to enter territory and attack, defend, etc., etc. With the Bush administration, I think process is very important because if you look at the history of their administration, number one, they've attached more presidential signing statements to bills than any other administration in history. And the signing statement to me seems like an unconstitutional act in which a president attaches a little note essentially to a bill saying he will only enforce the bill this way or the bill only applies to him in this way and that way. President Bush is not the first president to do this. Past presidents, both Democratic and Republican, have done it. But I think it's an interesting situation because it doesn't seem constitutional, and it's essentially an executive interpreting laws that Congress have passed, which does not seem to be legal because laws passed by Congress should apply to everyone equally, including members of the executive and the president. I hope at some point somebody brings this up before the Supreme Court, brings up the issue of signing statements and whether they are or not legal, and just to see if see what would happen. I think process is very important in government because you're always going to have different political parties in power. One political party might be chasing one ideology, but as long as you adhere to the processes set forth in the Constitution, then hopefully we can maintain some sort of balance. But in this administration, there have been a lot of accusations that Bush is tipping the balance in favor of a stronger executive through the use of signing statements, through little resolutions he's passed, and through his control of the military. And obviously, that's an interesting phenomenon. If he is tipping the power in terms of the executive, then we're getting away from our Constitution, which really sets three equal branches of government, and which seems to be the basis of how we've been able to exist as a successful democracy for however many years we've been together. Another interesting thing is a lot of times when I'm discussing politics with other Democrats, people will say, well, we should impeach Bush, and I always wonder, is there enough grounds to impeach Bush? I mean, only two presidents have been impeached, Andrew Jackson for some violation I'm not familiar with, and then of course Bill Clinton was impeached technically for lying under oath. Bush, has he ever lied under oath? No. Has he ever led the country into situations that are grossly unpopular with the majority of the people? Yes, it seems like the majority of the people are pretty unhappy with the way our government is being run right now, according to polls. Is that enough grounds to impeach the president? Would the Congress be within their jurisdiction to impeach the president simply for being unpopular? It doesn't seem like impeachment is fully defined. What constitutes impeachment? It's what constitutes an impeachable offense. can you impeach a president merely for being unpopular? And if that was ever brought up, it'd be a very interesting phenomenon, because in everyday political rhetoric, a lot of people usually talk about how we should impeach Bush, how he's terrible. Whether or not that's feasible is unknown, and I doubt it'll ever come to that. I don't think Democrats will ever, or try to impeach the president. But it is an interesting thing to think about.